And welcome to another edition of Where Are They Now, where we talk to former Corsair athletics or athletes who have gone on to make a difference not only in their professional careers, but certainly in their community. And I am Jim Seavey, the Director of Athletic Communications, and it's a privilege to welcome today a member of the Corsair class of 1985, a Hall of Famer from the ice hockey program, Paul Moore. Paul, welcome. It's so great to see you.
Jim, thanks so much for having me. This is awesome. Looking forward to it.
Well, it's you certainly are one of the greats to ever lace them up at now UMass Dartmouth. Back then it was SMU, Southeastern Massachusetts University. So it's a privilege. You and I have known each other for a few years, going back to my previous position at Mass Maritime. So I'm really looking forward to catching up with you and having our viewers learn more about your career and the things that you're doing now. So let's jump right into this. Let's talk about, when did you first fall in love with the sport of hockey?
So my father was the original founding fathers of Falmouth youth hockey back in 1965. And so I was born in 62. So the mid to late 60s, he was dragging me to the rink at 5 o'clock in the morning. And whenever he came to get me up, I can remember never saying no. And I always wanted to be there. And granted, at that time, I was 5, 6 years old. He was coaching a 12-year-old team. So I looked up to all those kids on the ice, of course, and just couldn't wait to get to the rink every day. And I think that was the time I definitely fell in love with the sport.
Well, it's certainly, and it takes a commitment because when the sun rises and everybody, you see all those 5:30 in the morning practices and everybody huddled around trying to keep warm and everything else. I'm sure there's special memories for you. Were there other sports that you played besides hockey growing up?
I did. I played baseball, and believe it or not, I wasn't a very good athlete growing up. And
Really?
yeah, I wasn't. I played baseball and I played football my freshman year in high school, and then at 5'7", 119 pounds as a freshman in high school, the hockey thing wasn't. The football thing didn't last too long. So I graduated high school at 6'2".
Okay, so
I was undersized as a younger kid, and I would consider myself a late bloomer. So I focused on hockey after that in high school.
so you almost grew half a foot there. That's just
I'm 6'4" now.
that's what I was going to say. 6'4", that makes an impact.
Yeah.
You mentioned your dad. Who were some of the other early influences on you growing up? Not just growing up as a young man, but as an athlete. Who were some of the people that influenced you in the town of Falmouth?
So in the town of Falmouth, obviously the first person I'd have to mention is Buddy Ferreira. Buddy Ferreira, longtime high school hockey coach in Falmouth, 30 plus years, legendary coach.
Hmm.
He was my coach as a peewee. When I went to Bantams, he went to Bantams. When I went to high school, he went to high school. So I had him all those years in youth hockey, and then 2 years on JVs, and then my senior year in high school, he was the head coach. He got appointed head coach in 1981. We won a state championship that year. He had a tremendous influence on me. Having him coach that long, and then obviously, and I know you're gonna ask me some questions about coaching, I coached with him for a long time as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he set such unbelievable standards in young kids. And he was hard. He was hard, but he was fair. And I think that someone like myself, I needed that as a kid, that structure and the discipline. And that's what I learned so much from him. And he was a lot like a father figure to me as well, because you spend so much time with these coaches at the youth hockey level. Let's face it, youth hockey starts in September and goes till April. You spend more time with them sometimes than your family, right? Yep. And they're such important figures in your life, and he was just such a positive one. And I got to mention Nicky Fotillo, longtime New York Ranger, tough guy in the NHL. People will remember him. He took me under his wing when I was 16 years old. And I'll never forget some of the lessons he taught me. One of the most valuable lessons I ever learned from him was I was a freshman at SMU, UMass Dartmouth, and I had the opportunity to play in the professional league in the summertime, which Division III college kids didn't get that opportunity. It was all D1 kids and all pros playing in the summertime out of the Hingham and Quincy League. And he took me up to the Quincy League on a Thursday night. I knew what the Quincy League was. I was a freshman in college, 19 years old. And I walk into the room, and it was the Bruins Summer League team.
Okay.
Michael Connell was in there. I remember Brad Park. I don't think he played, but Mike Milbury. So it was the who's who
In the room, yeah.
in the room. And then some of the college kids that were going to be Bruins, Bobby Sweeney. And I walked in, and the coach said, "Who's that?" And he said, "That's Paul Moore. What's he doing here?" "Oh, he's going to play tonight." And the coach said, "No, he's not." And Nicky said, "Really?" He goes, "Okay, he doesn't play, I don't play." And I'm standing there in the middle, looking at some of my childhood, right?
Sure. Yeah.
As I looked up to playing for the Boston Bruins. Nicky walked out of the room, and I'm standing there. I walked out, followed him, went out to the parking lot. The coach followed him in the parking lot and says, "Okay, you can play."
Wow.
Played in that league for 4 years of college and through 2 or 3 years of professional hockey. I played in that league almost 7 years, but I didn't belong there. I can tell you that right now. But Nicky believed in me so much and just always took me along and looked out for me and gave me opportunities that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So it was, he was an important figure in my life, and still is today. We're great friends and talk all the time.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. You mentioned about, two things that I think are really key in as kids get from the high school stage to college is structure and opportunity. And that's really what coaching and being part of an athletic family is all about, is that you have that structure, not just on the ice, but off the ice or whatever competition. But, the opportunity, I'm sure you've taken what those experiences you've had and have molded them into your coaching style as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also relate it to my playing days, because I had an opportunity to play at a high level, and it was minor pro, and the structure. And you talk about the structure. You get told every day where you're going, where to be, sometimes what you're going to eat, where you're going for 3 years.
Sure.
And you had a lot of that structure in college as well, playing athletics. And then when it was done, that's a tough adjustment.
Oh, absolutely.
And I didn't play for a long time. I mean, I played, college and pro hockey, 7 years combined, 6 years combined, but it's a tough adjustment. It really is.
Absolutely. You brought back some memories. Listen, some of those, some of the players that you played in that summer camp, and I always found, I was very privileged to work for 8 years at schools in Hockey East at Merrimack and Mount Lowell, and those guys are just the nicest guys on the planet. You watch them, you watch them play and what they do, and sometimes it's heated, but at the end of the day, the way they represent themselves, you mentioned Bobby Sweeney and Brad Park, and Brad was actually a TV analyst for UMass Lowell, and I think of guys like Jean Rattel and people like that, Kenny Hodge, who were just icons in Boston, and they were great players, but they're so much better people. So that had to be amazing just to look around the room. I'm sure you were like a little kid in a candy store looking at them.
It really was. And you got to remember the times, right? So this was 80, so my sophomore year, 82, going into that in 83. And the Olympics, the 80 Olympics,
Right.
was only 2 or 3 years old.
Yep.
Dave Silk played in that league.
Yeah.
Ralphie Cox played in that league. Jim Craig. It was amazing. Yeah. And and I'm this green kid trying to find my way. I think from a hockey standpoint, I think I found my game there.
Yeah.
In those summer leagues. And it really helped me through my college career, of course, big time.
Well, we're 11 days away from the 41st anniversary of the greatest game ever played.
Yeah.
So I still, I remember coming home as a 16-year-old high school kid, and remember at the screen, it's like, if you don't want to know what happened, turn away now. And, you're just watching the game, and, it's just, I still get chills thinking about that game. But
everyone knows where they were if you're between 12 and whatever years old and up, you knew where you were when that.
Oh,
came.
absolutely, absolutely. I remember I was at a high school basketball game and I came home and people, it's funny. I tell kids that my work study kids, the game wasn't on live TV, and they're like, "What do you mean? Why wasn't it on ESPN?" Well, there wasn't, there wasn't that outlet to do it,
Yeah.
and it's just yeah, it's one of those "where were you" stories. Absolutely. You mentioned Betty Ferrer and certainly playing for him in youth hockey and
Mhm.
and growing up. Um, what are your best memories? What are your favorite memories of playing for Buddy and your at Falmouth High and you talked about things that you've learned from him. If you had to pinpoint a favorite experience or a favorite moment from playing at Falmouth, what would it be?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, when you win a state championship in high school, and back then, you might remember, you played in the Garden quarters, semis, finals, then East-West finals. The East played the West,
The West, right?
Western Mass. So I played in the Garden 4 times my senior year, and we won a state championship. And clearly, I can close my eyes and I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I can remember that whole experience like yesterday. And my junior year, believe it or not, we went to the finals and lost to Barnstable, our crosstown
Your
rival.
rival, yeah.
So that's the first thing that comes to my mind as far as experiences, and and we had a lot of success, and those days just were incredible to play in the Boston Garden that many times. It was just in those years, you're coming out of the 70s with the big bad Bruins, and
Sure.
I can name every guy that was on the Bruins that year, which you probably could too. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the state tournament is definitely winning the state championship at the Boston Garden was very special.
And I'm sure you soaked it all in because it's like when you're in the moment, sometimes you just don't. Oh wow, I'm here, but I hope you soaked in every moment of that because like you said, you can't remember what you had for breakfast or take out the garbage. But I
Right.
remember playing the third period of the state championship game that how long ago just make such a tremendous impact, and it's just those are the special things. Absolutely. Um, you win a state title. You come up, you take a little half-hour trek from Falmouth up to Dartmouth. You arrive at SMU and made an immediate impact on the Corsairs. Not only were you one of the top defensemen in the region, but certainly in the country, and the numbers really speak for themselves. And I just want to list a few of them here. Played in 84 games, 12 goals, 57 assists, 69 points. Those numbers still rank in the top 5 in school history. All these years later, over 35 years later. What was the biggest adjustment you had to make from the high school game to the college game? And what would you say stands out as your favorite memories in an SMU uniform?
Oh, I have so many. So adjustments, it's all about pace and speed, right? You play this game with 3 things: your head, your hands, and your feet. And each level you go up, those things are faster and faster, faster. They become faster. You hope you adjust to those things. And I think the speed of the game and tempo, and I tell people, like even today, and I tell my players, I try to make a point to get down to UMass and show these guys a game, because Division III hockey is no joke. I don't know if I play on that team, to be honest with you. Division III hockey is serious. It's big business now, and it's really, really good. And it's good for my players to see, because a lot of these kids want to play Division I hockey, which is a great goal to have. But for a lot of kids, it's out of reach. And so isn't Division III hockey, because it's really, really good. But yeah, the pace of the game, it was interesting. So Joe Prenda recruited me.
Mm-hmm.
He was a character. He worked for conservation or someone in the state. He had a really big job with the state, and he was something else. He was a real fun guy to be around, and I only had him for a year and a half. But I came into a team the first year. I forgot what the record was. I don't know if you have it in front of you. I don't know if we made the tournament or we lost in the first round, but there were some great leaders on that team. And a guy named Dave Mazzarella, he was unbelievable. Kid from Durfee. He was a senior. And it's funny. It's things I don't forget. And I don't forget how you remember somebody's name, it's how you get treated by someone. And he
Sure.
treated me so well. And there were some other great leaders on that team and some great teammates too. But I just remember him, how nice he treated me, because as a freshman, I came in, I did play a lot, and that didn't go over good with some of the other senior defensemen. It was challenging at times, but you got to earn your spot too, you know. You have your
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so it was great experience. And, you know, I tell people one of the greatest decisions I made in my life was choosing UMass Dartmouth for a ton of reasons. Specifically, the people I met, the education I got. You know, I saw a picture on online the other day of the library, and I was always enamored by the architect. Now, I'm not going to tell you I spent a lot of time in the library. I won't tell you that, but the architect, and how I always thought it was beautiful. Some people think it's different, but that picture online the other day of the library was just
Sure.
awesome. And the people, my best friends today, who I've seen their kids grow up, and I'm on a thread with 5 or 6 guys that I played hockey with and went to school with, that we talk every day, and special people. And one of the most grateful things I'm grateful for is having the opportunity to play for Coach Raleigh. I only played with him for 1 year. I was a senior when he came in.
When he came in,
at a real critical time in our hockey program. I think Mickey Conley, I'm not sure he was there my senior year. He was a longtime athletic director at SMU, UMass Dartmouth. And Coach Raleigh really, he brought the stability and the credibility that the program needed, because we had some success. You know, as you know, my sophomore and junior year, we won ECAC championships.
Yep.
Really good hockey players, and most of them fall from the South Shore. It was interesting. But Coach Raleigh's been an incredible mentor to me, incredible friend. It was just the best thing I did, with all the memories I have there, and obviously having the privilege to play for Coach Raleigh and play in that program for 4 years. Just, it couldn't get any better.
You know, one of the things I've seen Coach, in the 3 years that I've been at UMass Dartmouth. But one of the first phone calls I got when I arrived in 2018 was from John, who I had known from working in the MassCAC and through the hockey world over in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And I just enjoyed talking to John, because he's so vibrant. He's so passionate about the game. And I'm sure he brought that to every aspect of, when you played, and certainly as you've gone along in your career, but how important he was, and the recognition that he's received both regionally and nationally throughout his career is so well deserved that, it's interesting that you say, that at a critical point in the program, because when he arrived in '84 and to when he retired, 4 years ago, is the numbers are insane as far as wins, and people don't realize, Paul, and if you can talk about this for a little bit, people don't realize how intense and how good that ECAC league was.
Oh.
I mean, it was great hockey to watch, and it was competitive, and it was fast. It just, people don't realize, how good it was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's the longevity that he had, and his moral character, his just what he did for his players. And I've said this before, and nobody knows how much cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lifelong friend in Coach Raleigh, right? Sitting here at 58 years old, and I talked to him a lot, and I got a lifelong friend out of it. He cares about my family. He cares about how I'm doing, and he's been a great mentor for me as a high school hockey coach as well. And just the longevity and the success, and to your point, the teams, the competition, even today and even back then,
absolutely
really, really good. The Currys of the world, and Framingham, Fitchburg was always
Yep.
right there. And so that's on and on with the teams. Yeah, no doubt.
And that's certainly carried on, since the formation of the MASCAC about 8 years ago. It's just so competitive, and I know you've got to be happy with certainly with when Eric Nowak arrived from Johnson and Wales, and it's really continued that. Two trips to the MASCAC final in 3 years is he's really carrying on that tradition, and I know you're proud of him as a graduate.
Oh, no doubt. In my opinion, he's doing it with one hand tied behind his back, because now the Division III is so competitive. You look at rosters, right? When I played, every kid was from Massachusetts, South Shore, some kids from the North Shore,
Sure.
right? I'm sure that roster doesn't look like that anymore. And I think that the competition he has from a recruiting standpoint, this isn't a slight on Hetland, but he's up against some serious powerhouse Division III programs from a recruiting standpoint that have incredible facilities. And it's a credit to him that he's kept the program at the level it is. And I hope one day, and I know Amanda, the athletic director, is passionate about getting a rink on that campus. And certainly I know the alumni will rally around the university whenever that day comes to get something like that done.
Absolutely. It's a credit to the long-term success the program has enjoyed that you were such a big part of. I want to talk about your senior year for a minute. Let's segue to that. You really truly saved your best for last. You took your game to another level. 27 points as a senior, first team all ECAC, which when you look at the caliber of the teams and competition you're playing, it ranks as one of the top single season performances in school history. But regionally, it's just against that level of play, it's just phenomenal. What was the part of the game of your game that you enjoyed the most? Was it playmaking? Was it finishing a check, pinching? What stands out when you look back? What was your favorite part of being a defenseman?
I would say skating was something that everyone always told me since a young kid. I was always a good skater. I had that gift, and I don't know if it's genetics or what plays into it. I've spent a lot of time on the development side of hockey, but I love to skate. And I think that's, I mean, you mentioned those numbers that I appreciate the accolades, but one of the best players I ever played was kid Steve McDonald, another Hall of Famer for UMass Dartmouth. And he was my defensive partner. And so he made me better. The players around me I felt always made, we were really, really good. We had some really good teams. And on top of that, I would say, and again, I don't dig into any stats or anything, but Sylvia, our goalie, he had to be one of the, in that era, and I know he's in the Hall of Fame as well.
Yes.
Deservedly so. He was incredible. For a couple of years, I had Finley behind me. I had Sylvia behind me. They were the best goalies in the country. They were incredible. So that lets you play with a lot of confidence. But the skating part, and I love to, being physical was never a challenge for me. I like to get in there.
Line it up and ready to go. Absolutely. Yeah. You mentioned, we talked about the coaches that you played for. Joe, when Joe recruited you, and obviously with Coach Raleigh. You've talked about the impact that he made on you and continues to make on this day. You had to pinpoint one lesson or one thing that Coach Raleigh imparted on you that to this day you still impart on your own players at Falmouth High. What would it be?
So that's a great question. And this is going to be my 33rd year at Falmouth High School. 24 of those years I was an assistant coach under Buddy Ferreira. And so I'd like to think I've evolved as a coach. You have to evolve. The times are different. The game has changed. Everything has changed. And I think with, the biggest thing I've learned from Coach Raleigh was it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And you have to be very careful when you're dealing with athletes, student athletes. It was a great lesson I get. And don't get me wrong, I'm not very proud of the coach I was 30 years ago. That, it was a different time then. You did bag skates, you did Herbie's, twice a week.
Yep.
And skated kids for the sake of skating them, which we know science tells us that doesn't do anything for your players, right?
Right.
You got to punish them. So he was consistent. He was fair. You always knew where you stood. And I take those, all those things with me today. And I can be firm, but I think being consistent and being fair is critical, and being very careful of what you say and how you say it. There's a way to pick a kid up without having to knock him down.
Sure.
And I think that those are some great lessons I learned from Coach Raleigh.
Well, and you're right. I mean, it's, a lot of things have changed, and, communication has certainly changed on with it.
Mm.
It's, you look at the world today that, unfortunately, there's not as much, probably, I don't know if you would agree with this, but there's probably not as much verbal communication as there used to be back in the day, because everybody does this now. It's, everybody's texting or tweeting, and, but yeah, absolutely. Those are great points.
Yeah. Understanding your players. And,
Yeah.
and Raleigh, Coach Raleigh did that better than anybody, because look, we're all unique in our own self and personalities, and in college, that's a whole different animal too, when you coach in college. So he was very good at that. And he was a consistent guy, and nobody came more prepared than him. So preparation was always in the back of my mind, being prepared, whether it's a practice or for a game. He did that better than anybody.
Yep. Well, and I know you have certainly carried down that tradition in your role at Falmouth. I want to talk about, when you graduated. You embarked on a professional career. You went to Kalamazoo, Michigan, playing the International League, and then you were in a couple of NHL camps with the Red Wings and the Devils organizations. Tell us about those experiences.
So yeah, right out of college, I ended up going to Kalamazoo and playing in the International Hockey League. And oddly enough, I was supposed to go to the Rangers camp that year. I'm glad I didn't. I ended up in Kalamazoo, half a dozen first-round draft picks. And back then, you had the NHL, the American League, and the I. I played in the I, and Kalamazoo was a farm team to Detroit Red Wings. And it was an incredible experience. It was eye-opening. I was one of two Americans on the team that I luckily made. I had to change my game dramatically at that level. Everybody can skate. Everyone can stick handle. Everyone has all these unique assets. And I was a big, 6'4". I got my weight up to 205, and I had to play tough. And it didn't take me long to realize that when you look around, and the way the game was played back then too. The I was a really tough league to play in.
Oh yeah.
But it was a great experience, and I think my 2 years there was, I made a lot of great friends, and it was, I was just fortunate, so lucky to be able to do that, And then my second year, I went to New Haven, played for Robbie Ftorek. I went to camp in New Haven, and they were the Rangers farm team.
Yeah.
And then my third year, that's when I ended up in New York with the Rangers, not the Devils.
Okay.
In a couple scrimmage games against the Devils. Shanahan was a freshman.
Was there? Yep.
His rookie year. Got in a couple. Had some confrontations with him. He was
Dust
a tough kid. But I was just so fortunate. I wasn't going to go to that Ranger camp either. I'm glad I did. Phil Esposito was the general manager, and I got some great stories and things there. I went there a long time. Only played in a couple of games, and was there for about I think a month during training camp. But I was the last guy to get cut.
Who was the coach?
Wasn't
Herb Brooks, or
Bergeron?
Not yet,
He played. Bergeron, not Bergeron. I'm drawing a blank. He coached for the Quebec Nordiques, and I'm drawing a total blank. Esposito was the
GM.
Yep. A guy named Joey Pacino was the assistant GM.
Okay.
Who grew up in New York as the stick boy.
Really?
He worked his way up to assistant GM.
Worked his way up to assistant GM. Wow.
Yeah.
The college hockey world or the hockey world is a very unique and a very intertwined. So it's amazing, stories like that all the time. When your playing days concluded, you returned to Falmouth. You've become such an influential figure in the hometown. You mentioned, growing up and playing in the youth leagues, served as president of the youth leagues. You've been honored by USA Hockey. as with a prestigious award for all your volunteer work. You helped construct the Falmouth Ice Arena, which is a tremendous facility on the Upper Cape. I know that giving back is so important. When you look back at everything that has gone over 33 years as an assistant, as a head coach now, as growing up in the town, when you look back and see the impact of your work on the community, what's your reaction? How does that make you feel personally?
You know, I don't reflect that much on that part of it, other than, I think the greatest gift you can give your community is volunteerism. I believe that. I learned that from my mother. Obviously, I have a special place in my heart for Falmouth youth hockey. My father was one of the founding fathers with a half a dozen other guys, and so passionate about, that part of it, and giving kids an opportunity to play hockey at an affordable cost. I think that's our mission statement at Falmouth youth hockey. So I've always been passionate about that. And the opportunity came, or the need came, to build that rink. And it took me 8 years. There was a couple of us that led that charge. And the long 8 years, I can tell you that. But it was so worthwhile. I mean, a youth hockey program owning a facility like that in the community is very rare. So we're very lucky. And the people that came before us set us up very well for that to happen. And it's just something that I'm obviously very proud of, but I'm very passionate about it. And I love what we have down here and the opportunities these kids have to play hockey. So we're very lucky.
And I know so much hard work has gone into that. And you've talked about others that have helped in the community, but the town and everyone there really owe a tremendous debt of gratitude for everything you've done. And you, not just as a hockey coach, but as such an important figure in the town. You mentioned, going on 9 years ago now, you had a chance to succeed your coach, Buddy Ferreira, as the head coach of Falmouth High School. You've certainly continued that great legacy that he built. What has been the formula? What have you done? What have you taken from Coach Ferreira, from Coach Raleigh? What have you done to keep that formula for success going for all these years at Falmouth?
That's a great question. And it's there's so many different things into that formula, but right off the gate, I think if you're consistent, you're fair, and you're honest with your players, I think you get buy-in. And when you get that buy-in, that's when the magic starts to happen. It comes from your athletes. Obviously, you set a standard, but then the players create the culture. Some people might argue that and say that the leadership does, the coaches does. No, you lead them down a path where that stuff comes out. That's in my mind. And you try to guide them through it. What are the expectations of your program? What are your expectations of your players? What are your expectations of your parents? Parents today, they're stakeholders, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Right? And if
you're absolutely right,
you need to, in the high school level, and certainly at the youth hockey level, they're stakeholders because they have to pay to play. But I believe they're stakeholders at the high school level as well, because the way the communication works today, the way kids are, I'm not gonna say that, hey, it's a different time we're growing up in. And I think you look at everybody, and especially your parents as stakeholders, and set that standard. You set a standard, and then you let your players create a culture that based on the standard you set. And it's not easy. There's some, I tell our players, you got to be able to accept adversity. And this is the great lesson of our sport, right? I mean,
sure.
Life sucks.
Yeah.
It'll hand you lemons really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you going to deal with it? And our sport really helps them deal with that. Now, do they know it? Did I know that as a 16, 18-year-old? No. You understand it and can really, reflect back on it as an adult, right? When you're going through it, you're in your own little bubble. And so I think there's just so many gifts and so many lessons that we can give as coaches. But again, I think being consistent is and being fair, and being firm and being tough is not bad. But I think when you knock a kid down, you can never forget to pick him back up.
Sure.
And you asked me about some lessons I learned from Coach Raleigh and Coach Ferreira. I took mental notes from my 24 years of Coach Ferreira of what not to do. Now, that's not a slight on his, whatever his style was, but I always thought about, okay, what different could I do that might be better or might work differently? And so you take a little bit of everything in that puzzle, in that pie, and you try to put it together.
Well, and that's the thing. And you talk about adversity, and you've certainly gone through it this year as a high school coach with COVID. We're certainly going through it. Everyone in the world's been affected by it. But from a standpoint with adversity is that this, I'm sure you tell your kids the same thing that other high school coaches are saying. This isn't the experience you signed up for, but that they will do anything to make their season possible. And I know you said you've played 9 games. Your players are wearing a mask, but they're making so many sacrifices to fight through that adversity for something that they love to do, which I'm sure is a lesson that they're going to carry for them when they graduate and as they go to college and as they go on in their lives, that they learn from the experiences you provided them.
Yeah, and the COVID thing has been really tough as far as knowing I don't want to say what's been taken away from seniors, whether it's senior night, whether it's banquets, whether it's proms, whatever it is, those experiences that these kids, so your heart goes out to them in that fashion. And then, at first, and it's still always about safety. Safety always comes first, about the safety piece. But then I started worrying about their mental health. I think there's a real potential crisis that could come out of this. I hope I'm wrong.
I agree.
But I think that I really worry about my players. I worry about all of them anyway. But this is a really weird time, and it's something that nobody has a roadmap for to get through, other than you just get through it. So the hockey's been a great outlet. We hope to get in, 12, 15 games of playoffs. So they have that diversion and that outlet, because this has been really, really rough on kids. And it's, I just hope we can come on the other side of this sooner than later.
Yep. I agree 100%. And you make a great point about it's not just about missing games. I'm sure that your kids love being at practice together. There are things that you look forward to just being on the ice together. It's not just games or certain things that have been taken away by this. It's life events. It's proms. It's things that you used to take for granted that all of a sudden they're not there. And that's the unfairness really of the pandemic, is that for these kids, it's unfortunately they're not going to get them back. And that's the tragedy in it. So dealing with adversity, as you said, it's one of those life lessons.
Yeah, that's the shining light that's coming out of it, is that we do have an opportunity to keep playing. We feel fortunate. There's other programs that either shut down or get games canceled every other week. So that's been an upside in getting these kids to practice, and we're obviously grateful. Anything we
absolutely grateful for the opportunity. Absolutely. Right. I want to go back 3 years into your tenure at Falmouth in right before Christmas of 2016. Your program and the Falmouth community and really the entire region was affected by an unspeakable tragedy. 2 of your student athletes lost their lives in a very tragic automobile accident. You not only had to grieve for the 2 young men, Lavin and Owen Higgins. You became the public face of not only the Falmouth High School, but for the entire Falmouth community, for the high school hockey world. An incredibly, incredibly sad and difficult time. What kept you going during that entire period?
I would have to say, in a nutshell, the kids, the players. We, and I say we because I'm my coaching staff. We knew we had to be there for them every day. It was, it's still tough to talk about. It was a very tragic accident, and how it affected these kids was beyond belief from a grief standpoint. And actually, I think hockey saved these kids' lives. Moving on beyond the accident, it was so important. That it happened on the 22nd for Lav, the 23rd for Higgy, the 24th, Christmas Eve. We practiced. And then after practice, I went to Rhode Island Hospital and picked up Higgy with the coroner. The hockey piece is, I believe, is what saved me, because I can see these kids on the ice that day, which it was a tricky thing. I called my AD. I said, you know, is it okay? These kids all want to get back on the ice. And it was really 48 hours after the accident. So it was very, very difficult. It took the community to get everybody through it. The community was amazing. Again, no roadmap to deal with stuff like this. And
No.
had some amazing support from our superintendent, Nancy Taylor, and our principal, Mary Gans, our athletic director, Kathleen Burke. The support was incredible. And I don't think I could have gotten through it without the kids. I have a special bond with that group of kids. We talk still to this day. We have anniversaries that are going to come up the rest of our life with this.
I like, yep.
It was very, very difficult, to say the least.
I remember you and I had a meeting in my office, and a lot of the things that you just said were a lot of the same things that you said to me that day in my office at Mass Maritime. And the one thing, I remember saying this to you this day, I don't know if I personally could have had the strength to do what you were able to do, because it wasn't just, it was so much more about a game, or about, it was about the community. It was about the young lives that had been and put back together. So I marvel to this day how incredibly strong you were, not just for your kids, but for your program. And that's really a testament to you, because that, you know, you mentioned about, I don't know where I was able to find that, but you did. And that, you know, is just a testament to your character and things that you have exhibited and shown and undoubtedly learned. And I'm sure, as you said, you know, there are anniversaries that date is, those dates are always going to be there. And it's just, I have always had tremendous respect for you and commend you for how you were able to bring the town through that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You do it because you have to do it. And then you just get through it. You know, unfortunately, it's given me the opportunity, with being a high school hockey coach. I make a point to speak to every team. Since that accident, I speak to every team we play after every game. And it's a tough lesson that we had to learn down here. And I think it's something that I've never been shy to say. You know, and I tell these young kids about getting behind a wheel and driving. The tough lesson is, you know, he was driving too fast, and that's what cost them their lives. And I feel it's my duty to, you know, carry on their legacy, but also let people know what happened and how it potentially could have been avoided. You know, we're all those at that age, and we're all invincible.
Yep, exactly.
I can remember driving down Route 6 from Hetland, you know, down to my house at West Island my senior year. You know, you think you're invincible. And,
yep.
And again, I think I embrace the opportunity to be able to talk to people about it and some lessons that we can learn from it.
Well, and I want to talk about what you did shortly after the accident. You've established an incredible organization called the 1019 Foundation, which people who don't know, 10 and 19 were the uniform numbers worn by the young men who were passed away. The mission of the 1019 Foundation is to establish scholarships for senior football, hockey, and baseball and track athletes at Falmouth High. and to provide financial aid to youth athletes with assistance for the town's programs. I know the support that you've received from the hockey community over the years has been overwhelming. Tell us how the foundation has grown and what it continues to do for people in the Falmouth community and beyond.
Yeah, so that's been one of the bright lights that have come out of this, having the opportunity to help kids, seniors in high school who are either basketball, hockey, football player, give them scholarships. So early on after the accident, there was GoFundMe set up for the family, and it was an interesting thing that happened. I was getting letters and checks mailed to me from all over the world, everywhere. You can imagine these letters, and money was coming in, and a lot of the it was this interesting dynamic what happened with why the money flowed to the team, and they wanted to do something for the team, and we all agreed, listen, we're gonna set up a foundation, and that's how it was born. And the work we've been able to do over the years has been incredible, with a lot of support from the community who donate still to this day, and it's grown to great numbers. We will be able to carry on their legacy for years to come in perpetuity, and that's what we're hoping for anyway, to help seniors at Falmouth High School. And it's been really, really rewarding experience to be able to tell people the story about Lab and Higgy and what kind of kids they were. I mean, we lost our heart and soul out of our locker room. That was another thing on top of it. Two of our leaders of our team, two of our leaders in the school, captains of the football team, right? It was a tough blow. And to be able to carry on their legacy in a positive way has been very, very gratifying. I can tell you that.
Well, I know 4 years ago, my cadets at Mass Maritime were privileged to foundation during NCAA D3 week. James was actually going to enroll at Maritime and play football. And I know the student athletes at UMass Dartmouth, our student athlete advisory committee, want to carry on that tradition in the spring. So I know we're looking forward to working with you and doing what we can to help raise funds and awareness for it. So I congratulate you on everything you've done, and just the positivity that's come out of a tragedy is just it's so remarkable and so heartwarming. So I commend you for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
When you look back at your experience as a student, not a student athlete, but as a student, what are your fondest memories of being at SMU?
Oh, I could start down at Horseneck Beach and go all the way down to West Island in Fairhaven, but I think the times, people need to understand the times that when we were in college and what the atmosphere was on campus, to be able to live on campus. And back in the day it was you lived in blue, purple, red, or green, and then house 7 through 9. It was a very dynamic campus, to say the least, back then, and we had a lot of fun. I mean, I think back in the day, you were allowed to have a certain number of people in your quad and have parties, right?
Right.
And there was the things that went on in the quad at the campus over near the dorms, and the uniqueness of like everyone back then. Your freshman and sophomore year, you lived in the dorms. That's what mostly everyone did. And then your junior and senior year, you moved off campus. And so that was a great experience, because I lived in New Bedford on Hawthorne Street my junior year, and then went over to West Island in Fairhaven my senior year. And, getting dressed in your house and getting in a car at 4 o'clock in the morning, driving down to Tabor with the boys. Got some great memories with that, skating at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, paying your dues on an outdoor rink, the concerts on campus. It was a great experience for me. It was, as I said, it was the best decision I ever made in my life, because of the education I got, the people I got to meet, my best friends to this day, through not only hockey, but because I still have a lot of friends that didn't play hockey that went to UMass. And I just can't say enough of my experience there. I tell everyone it's the best 4 years of your life. You just don't know it until it's over.
Well, and here we are, 35 plus years later, and you're you're reciting these memories off the top of your head. So they still impact, they resonate all these years, and
Yeah,
that's all you can
don't forget
ask.
the cow tipping in Westport. I don't know if that's still a tradition, but
I don't know if it is, but
we had some great times, no doubt.
I want to talk a little bit about balance. Balance, certainly as a student athlete, balance is so incredibly important with the rigorous schedule you have during your season, but both in and out of competition. How did an SMU UMass Dartmouth education prepare you for life after graduation? And what were some of the skills that have helped you balance such a demanding schedule?
I think the most important thing that comes to mind is time. And it happens everywhere in your life, right? That's all we have is time, right?
Right.
And then how you manage that time and the structure. That's where, you go to college to grow up, right? And no one's telling you got to go to class. Your mother and father aren't coming to do your laundry. And maybe today might, but they didn't back in 1985. But that's what comes to my mind immediately. And the education. So I think what UMass Dartmouth has done over the last, since I've been on that campus and all these of the last 10 to 15, 20 years, how they've elevated their status in the educational community. And I don't know if I'd get in that school today, to be honest with you. And a lot of my hockey teammates might say the same thing. So it was tough enough for me in those times. Now the standard that they've risen to, student athletes today, it's much more demanding. Your time management is critical because the school's probably more difficult. And from an athletic standpoint, I know that you play Division III hockey at a high level program like UMass Dartmouth, it's a full-time job year round. From a nutritional standpoint, from a staying in shape standpoint, from skating. And so that just adds to your stress and how important it is to manage your time management is critical in how you do that. And I think that's a great thing you learn in college.
Well, I have no doubt that you would still be able to get into UMass Dartmouth today.
I don't know.
Knowing you, I have no doubt that would happen.
I don't know. Boy, it was different back then.
It was, absolutely.
But, and you're proud, I'm very proud to say I went there, and I made a joke in my, I don't know if it was during John Raleigh's, I introduced John in the athletic, when he went into the Hall of Fame. And back then, when you told people you went to SMU, people associated it with Southern Methodist University.
Southern Methodist, yep.
And I can't tell you how many people I'd yeah to. You went to SMU? Yeah. Southern Methodist? Yeah. Just, because that's what that's what happens.
That's what people knew. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are you looking most forward to in a post-COVID world?
Oh my Lord, going out to dinner with a group of people.
Yep.
From that standpoint, from a personal standpoint, doing some traveling, and my kids are all getting older now, and they're all left the nest. So going to see my kids, and I've seen them, but being able to go and have some fun, and from a high school hockey standpoint, I can't wait to get back to some kind of normalcy, because it's been very difficult as a coach and these teachers. You want to talk about heroes, these teachers that are getting it done online, which no one will tell you it's a perfect system.
No.
That platform is very difficult to master. It's, to be able to go into the locker room and communicate with your players. Practice ends, they got to go. You don't have any team meetings. You can't do any of those things to develop your culture and that locker room. What that locker room does for your teammates and for your team and for the leadership to come out. That's where the leadership comes out. That's where your team bonds and becomes a team. You're missing that. And I can't wait to get back to that for the kids. It's such an important part of it.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I've seen both of what you've talked about with my wife. She's a kindergarten teacher, and I tell her she has a straight path to heaven for teaching kindergarten over Zoom for almost a year. And it's an incredibly difficult job, but I agree with you about from the coaching standpoint. It's like, the things that you things that you took for granted maybe a year ago at this time, you definitely appreciate going forward and looking forward to going to that. Last question I have, Paul. What's the best advice that you would give to a student athlete who is just beginning their collegiate experience?
Wow, in 2021, I already talked about the time management, which
Yep.
I think is a critical piece. It just, that comes to my head all the time because I know how important that is. And unfortunately, did I figure it out totally as in college? No, I did not. And I think, don't worry about tomorrow. I will sit here and tell you right now that I am 58 years old and I've been a car dealer for the last 25 years. I started in the insurance business. I still don't know what I want to do. And I think a lot of kids in this time put a lot of pressure on the what's next.
Yep.
And don't worry about too much about what's next in front of you because you might not figure it out. This last couple of years I've been flipping houses, still in the car business, but I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. I'm still having fun, but I wouldn't put that pressure on yourself. And I think if you can take that pressure off yourself, stay on your path, stay in your lane, don't worry about someone else's lane or someone else's path, it will all work out. It always does. I can say that from a lifetime experience now. I was in that bubble. I actually got done playing hockey. I got hurt in New York, and I could have played another year, but I stopped playing hockey because I had rats in my head about, my life's going to pass me away. Well, your life's not going to pass you away. I got to move on. I got to do X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
I got to get that job in Boston at a financial firm. That's what I ended up doing initially out of college. I'm sorry, when I got done playing pro hockey. And it doesn't matter. I can sit here with a lot of philosophical things to say about it, but I think staying in your lane and not worrying about what's next, not worrying about tomorrow, and embrace the now and have fun with it and enjoy those 4 years at UMass Dartmouth because they'll be the best you're ever going to have. And it's, I've met, and I've had the privilege to speak to some hockey teams over the years, and your best friends, you go to their christenings, you go to their weddings, they're lifetime friends you're going to have. And it doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any better.
Well, I'll tell you, Paul, it hasn't gotten any better than being able to spend this time with you today. I'm so appreciative and can't thank you enough for sharing your story and your experiences about your alma mater, and certainly about the incredible impact that you've had on so many people over the years. Thank you so much once again. I can't wait until this is all over where we can see each other in person again. And I know our student athletes are looking forward to working with you and the 1019 Foundation going forward. Thank you again for your time. He is Paul Moore, class of 1985, an ice hockey Hall of Famer. And he has been our guest today on Where Are They Now? I'm Jim Seavey. Look forward to our next episode. And thank you so much, Paul, once again. You take care and stay safe.
Thank you, Jim. The privilege was all mine. And when they're ready to build that rink and they need help, I hope you come knocking.
That sounds great. Definitely will happen. Thank you again.